discussion on Monday Special. Tonight we're zeroing in on events that have kicked off the week on a very high political note, beginning, of course, with a preamble to protests that are expected by the NASA coalition demanding the exit of IEBC officials and various other issues. We have IEBC's response to demands that have been made by NASA, as well as the arrest of Embakasi East MP Babu. We know we're going to try and get through this trio of topics in the next few minutes. So let me reintroduce my guests to you. And to my immediate right is a former Jubilee point man. Now he is the Kisumu County Assembly Speaker, Onyango Olo. And next to him is Igembe North MP, Mauka More. And you're both welcome to the program. So Onyango, let me start with you. So tomorrow NASA will be holding demos. Is it just here in the capital? Will it be nationwide? And what is your message to IEBC?
Thank you so much. The demo will take place tomorrow in Nairobi, but the other satellite towns will also be at liberty to organize their demos. As you are no doubt aware, and to our viewers, Kenya is a multi-party state, and sometimes in 2010 we gave ourselves a new constitution. Under that constitution, sovereignty rests with the people and is exercised by the people directly or through their representatives. Number one. Number two, we have a right to picket as a people, and that one is enshrined in our Bill of Rights in the new constitution. Consequently, the elections of this year having been bungled, and the NASA coalition having tried whatever was possible so that we go through this election in a way that is credible, that is transparent, that brings comfort to all participants, and IEBC having flatly declined, we as the NASA fraternity have come out now to express our right to picketing, to express our discomfort, our distress with IEBC in its reluctance to obey the general will of the people as expressed in the ballot. Remember, we have not found ourselves in this scenario through our own making. The highest court in this land, the Supreme Court, delivering its majority judgment through the Chief Justice, was very clear that the elections was wrought with irregularities and illegalities. As the NASA fraternity, we bent forward and backward to plead with IEBC. We are ready for these elections, but please put the following things in place so that we don't repeat the same mistakes that you repeated barely a month ago. That was simply out of our love for our country, that we didn't want it. We don't want it to burn. We don't want it to get into chaos, but we want to honor the rule of law established by ourselves. They refused. And so, having refused, what alternatives do we have? NASA has only one alternative: to picket and to express its displeasure with what has been going on in IEBC. And we are asking all our supporters to come out in large numbers, wherever they are, to express our discomfort and to tell the world that we are ready, able, and willing to take part in these elections, but under the conditions that have been spelled out that will ensure it is not only transparent, it is not only fair and free, but it is also credible, failing which we are telling them there will be no elections.
Malcolm.
No, I think the listening to the former Secretary General of, not Secretary, Chairman.
Secretary General.
Secretary General of,
and now Speaker.
of TNA, now Speaker, Kisumu County Assembly. You would think that...
Vindu Vichenjanga. I suppose.
Yes.
You said listening to him tonight. Okay.
No, actually, it is actually like interchanging the roles. I was on the other side as well.
Right,
previously.
Once upon a time. So that's true.
It's a good convergence that we have. But my take on what is stated is, you hear him stating very clearly, going to court was actually an afterthought. Because if they had gone through the thought process, after the ruling of the Supreme Court, there is a problem. You get a ruling that is favorable to you, but in all your calculations, in all your machinations, in all your planning, you are expecting a surprise of the other side. You will be rejected, and then you will go back now to a different route. Now, when they got, the NASA team got the ruling that the Supreme Court delivered to them, That is the nullification of the presidential election. There is a problem in how or what you do with that kind of verdict. That is, 60 days, the Supreme Court ordered a repeat of the presidential election. And now, instead of going to the people and organizing and the planning and waiting for the, and campaigning and canvassing for the vote, there has been complete and constant provocation in the sense of making a demand after demand after demand. Now, the question is, they are not saying who they are making the demand to. If it is about IEBC, IEBC was not given the role of arbitration. They were given the role to go and prepare and plan for an election in 60 days. Now, my friend, very brilliant Kenyan, under the team, they know very well, 60 days is actually the clock is ticking. Now, if you make a demand today, let's say, for example, you want to remove the CEO of IEBC, you need to advertise, you need to shortlist, you need to go and interview, you need to appoint. Now, at that point is where the problem is. The issues that they are raising, they are deliberately not ready for the repeat election.
Okay, we'll get into the issues very shortly, and your assertion that IEBC has basically ignored your demands, because part of what we'll be discussing very shortly is their response letter to yourself, where one can see that some of these issues have been dealt with. But before we get there, we have heard the president speak quite sternly about the prospect of any meting out of violence. Listen to what the president had to say.
Wamesema kesho ya kwamba wamepanga maandamano badala ya kwenda kampeni. Sisi tunasema maandamano pia ni haki kulingana na katiba yetu. Lakini tunawaambia wakijaribu kuharibu mboga za wakina mama kwa barabara, wakijaribu kuchoma vioski vya watu, wakijaribu kuvunja maduka ya watu, wakijaribu kupiga mawe magari ya wenzao, wakijaribu kusimamisha Wakenya ambao wana haja ya kwenda kazi, ndio watajua ya kwamba kuna serikali.
And following the president's sentiments, a section of traders in Nairobi held a presser today saying that they were going to protect their businesses, and this has stoked fears of the possibility of a confrontation tomorrow. What guarantees, let me begin with NASA, what guarantees can NASA give that its supporters will be calm and, you know, make their voices heard, albeit without infringing on the rights of other Kenyans tomorrow? Thank you, Anne.
I don't even know where to start, because I worked with the president, and this was a gentleman in all fairness. And when I see Uhuru address the country in the way he addresses it, simply it sends shivers down my spine. And surely, as they say, a man can be influenced by the company he keeps. This is not the Uhuru that I've always known. Number two, I'm reminded of
Why do you say that? What is different with him saying that you know there's a government? And I'm coming to that. Mm-hmm.
In a neighboring country called Uganda, that was a great country that was described at one time as the Pearl of Africa. Then a president came by the name Obote. Obote was a bit rough on the Baganda, and he overthrew Kabaka regime. Later, he had jailed a man by the name Benedicto Kiwanuka. When Amin overthrew Obote, he was received as the savior of Uganda and Baganda as a people, and they loved him. And so he released Benedicto Kiwanuka, and he appointed Kiwanuka to be his chief justice, a man of impeccable credentials. But Kiwanuka stuck to the rule of law. Amin started bit by bit trudging on the rule of law, on the rights of the people. When Kiwanuka refused to give in, and that was the chief justice, exactly the same things that happened to Maraga when Maraga now comes out and says, I'm ready to give the ultimate prize. Kiwanuka was killed by Amin, who was originally received as the savior of Uganda. When a head of state goes to that level, I can tell you as a people, we have every right to panic and we have every right to say that we are going to exercise our sovereign right as a people.
But what has,
Number two.
Hold on. But what has the president said that is so, I mean, he's certainly been stern in saying that,
Yes.
I mean, if there is violence, then you will see the machinery of government. But isn't that what all Kenyans should expect? That unless...
It's still my question and I'll give you.
Sorry, sir. Please go ahead. Mm-hmm.
The president, who does not know that he has the command of the armed forces, the police, and Boynet is not existing? The commissioner of police? Why should the head of state go to threaten demonstrators who are going to picket under the law? It is to tell you, I will take this directly. Na mtajua serikali iko, mtajua. Seriously, that is not where we want to go.
I think
and you have asked me,
the
question you asked me, what are we going to do to ensure that businesses are not destroyed, that this demonstration is peaceful? We have got marshals, youth, young people who will ensure that we keep to our route, that we keep to our agenda. And remember, we are not going to evict someone from his office. We are going to express displeasure that this man should resign and these people should resign so that we get a credible election. Let us not mix these things. So unless and until you send the police to provoke these people, you cannot say that we are tutaona chamtemakuni. No.
No, I think there is a misconception about the tolerance of the president. I do not think in the history of this country we have a president as tolerant as Uhuru Kenyatta. And now, when he says he has seen a tone that looks different, he doesn't tell you the content of what he has said. He is stating very clearly, and in section 38 of the Constitution, that's 7 of the Constitution, that is where the rights are coming from, where the one he's quoting. And it is very clear. It says, every person has the right to peacefully, unarmed, to assemble, to demonstrate, to picket, and to present petition to the public. To present petitions to the public authorities.
Yes.
One, you have not heard him saying they are carrying any petitions, but what he does not refer to is what the president wants to hang on. Section 24D, it neutralizes that 7 in very many ways. It states, the need to ensure that the enjoyment of rights and the fundamental freedoms by any individual does not prejudice the rights and the fundamental freedoms of the others. Now you have the business people, the president needs to protect them. They have the business or premises owners, or there are even passers-by. Maybe tomorrow I may want to, today we have been having a security meeting in my constituency. About 4 of us, members of parliament from Nyambene, we have been having problems. Tomorrow I may need you to take a petition to the Minister for Internal Security. For internal security. I may be disrupted in that exercise of my duties. So I needed the protection of the president, not threats, the way he's saying, those are not threats. When you allow a mob to come out and purport to go aimlessly, because there's no aim. If they under petition, I would agree to go to ask the president to send an emissary to go and receive a petition. Ask him, do you have a petition?
Yes, and it is very interesting. One, let us make this very clear, and I want Bwana Maure to get this very clear. When we talk of peaceful picketing, until that peace is destroyed, you are not a prophet, neither are you a magician, to be able to know that you tomorrow, Anne, I know you are going to destroy people's businesses. Number 2, that very constitution you are referring to, have you ever bothered to look at the structures of government constituted there? We have the army, we have the police, we have the judiciary, we have got different organs of the state to play different roles. If you are going to tell me that the President of the Republic is going to oversee the protection of the businesses of the individuals, supposing, in quotes, that they are destroyed, what is the police commissioner going to do under that inspector of police or that OCS? It's okay, just wait a minute. What is he going to do? Secondly, are you telling me that all the robberies tonight that will take place in Kenya, the president is going to attend to them personally? Why should he himself threaten his own citizen? Remember, he's not president of Jubilee. This is the president of the Republic of Kenya.
Now, if you refer to the president as the president of the Republic of Kenya, I totally agree that you have seen the totality of the Constitution, but in very many ways. The presidency is the confluence of all the organs of state. And just remember, the new constitution happens to be a new architecture of government on all the institutions. Whether it's the Chief Justice or the legislature, the judiciary and the legislature, the presidency is the confluence of all of them. You can see today we have a parliament, we have a judiciary, all of them intact, but there is something shaky about the election outcome. The message of Kenyans was misinterpreted by those who are supposed to interpret. It did not come out clear. You can see the country cannot be stable without the issue or the institution of the presidency. So you cannot just say the presidency is not supposed to be aware. He is supposed to be aware whether there are cockroaches, whether the cows are getting pregnant, or there is no rain. He is supposed to take care of that.
Oh dear. Okay.
No.
Okay. Let's move. No. We are not going
it's
to.
The institution,
we're not going to discuss
the
whether the president should be aware that cows are getting pregnant. But let me move forward, Onyango, and just a quick clarification. So the intention of your protest is to ensure that these officers who NASA has alleged were culpable in, conducting a fraud election are removed from office.
Yes.
So you're going to picket until they leave office?
Until they leave, and until our conditions, and remember our conditions were irreducible minimum.
You're going to picket until you get all the conditions that you have? Okay. Fair enough. But is there legal ground for NASA to demand the removal of these particular individuals while they have not been found guilty by a court of law of having committed any criminal offense? And having said that, this is also a coalition that is hoping to have power. So does that not portend some very perhaps disturbing things should a NASA government come into power if they are willing to insist on the removal of officers who have not yet been found guilty? What then would happen under NASA administration?
Wonderful, and I wish that I had this opportunity to deliberate on this with a lawyer also, so that because it's something I've looked at, and I will tell you there's a legal basis. The legal basis is to be found in Article 1 of the Constitution and on the values of the new Constitution that we gave ourselves. Number one, that sovereignty rests with the people. So the ultimate power is with the people. They govern themselves in the way that they want to govern themselves. Number two, that you need not commit a criminal offense for us to say we have got no confidence with you. That is why, under the Elections Act, we are not saying that the elections need not have a criminal element. We say they have to be conducted in a transparent, fair, and a credible way. In a sense, you can conduct them in a way that is not credible, that is irregular, that is illegal, but that is not criminal. So long as whoever was discharging these responsibilities did not discharge them in a regular way, in a legal way, and did not exercise his powers in a transparent and credible way, we, the people, exercising our sovereignty, have a right to say that you have conducted these elections in a manner that is contrary to the Constitution of the Republic, to the Elections Act, and to all attendance legislations that should ensure that you exercise your powers of office in a manner that benefit the people of Kenya. So, yes, there is every legal and constitutional justification that the people who bungled elections must go out. As to the criminality, that is now left to the prosecutory powers and authorities to investigate. And remember, they can even investigate and arraign you in court, and there is no sufficient evidence. But that does not mean that there was no illegality. Remember, in illegality, the proof on what we call a balance of probability. On criminality, the proof is on what we call beyond a reasonable doubt. But so long as you hit that line of illegality, it is on that line that the Chief Justice and the Supreme Court set aside the elections. It is not on that of beyond a reasonable doubt. So I can assure you, this gentleman and his team who bungled our nation, who conducted a coup against the general will of the people of Kenya, must step aside for us to reclaim our country back.
Now, there's the question that needs to be answered to Kenyans by the coalition, in the sense that you cannot be constantly be seen to be moving goalposts. When you are doing it in a field, there is an edge or an end to that field. At what time or at what level or which step will you reach and say this is the end to the demands? Because remember, even this new IEBC was constituted less than a year ago. And it was the demonstrations, they accepted, everybody was okay. Now, every time you go to an election, if I lose, definitely everybody blames the referee. But there are some of us who know there are other factors that play outside the referee. Now, we have a constitutional deadline here of 60 days. There has been constant reminder that we are not intending to have an election here. When you ask whether you are boycotting, you say, no, we are not boycotting. But if you have two candidates, one of them doesn't show up, Section 38 comes out clear. The one who shows up for nomination, for the election, is declared the president automatically. That is the law, not me. Section 138.
We will read
it.
it.
In the Constitution. Now, when he says, we are the people, or we the people, you know, in this election, it came out very well.
You're also the people.
Yes.
Is that what you want to
so
say?
when you cannot say we the people, looks like there are no people on the other side. There can be counter demonstrations. What can be done? Because when you do demonstration, you don't expect other people to go and relax, and they see you destroying their property, and they see you harassing them around, see you beating them around.
But he's just talked about
yeah.
NASA having its own youth marshal, so we're going to make sure that
now the youth can come from even the other side as the youth as well.
To beat us?
No.
Let them also organize their own demonstrations.
Not beating. If you are intending to beat, you can be beaten. But I'm saying the issue is not about the beatings. What we are saying is, for this nation to heal, there must be some manners among the leaders. And the leaders not to unleash jobless youth, you misuse them on the streets, and then expect there to be order in the evening. It cannot happen.
Just to respond, a simple question that the Honorable Mr. Maore has said, until when will we stop? We will never stop until the elections in this country are conducted in a free, fair, and transparent manner. We will never stop picketing until the thieving hands of Kenyans into the electoral system stop. We will never stop until elections in this country produce a president who is generally elected through the will of the people of this country. We will never stop, Mr. Maore.
All right. Let's not take that further. I want to move forward then now to one of the points that you made earlier, Onyango, which was the fact that the reason why you're going to be picketing tomorrow is because the IEBC ignored your demands. But they did write to NASA, and let's just show you, if we can, some excerpts of what they said. And as we begin with the question of Al Ghurair, IEBC has said to NASA that whilst Al Ghurair will still do the printing, the UN, specifically UNDP, would procure ballot papers and result forms. Treasury is yet to sign off on this, but IEBC has requested the same. They say that this move will restore public confidence in as far as having ballot papers and result forms that are serialized and that can be verified. Does this not raise the bar in terms of transparency?
It does not. Our problem was never with the person who is going to procure the ballot papers or the ballot boxes. Our problem was with the person who is printing. That man who is in a position to remain with extra ballot papers and give it to someone under the table. Our problem is with that person who has whose history is wrought with mischief. So whether you call the UN, whether you say, Onyango Law yourself now produce the money for Al Ghurair to print these ballot papers, you would not have answered the NASA demand. Our demand is Al Ghurair. You are so enmeshed into this system. We have complained against you and explained the problems that you bring into our system. Keep off. The issue that they have got a 2-year contract is neither here nor there. We are not saying that there is no money to print or to engage someone else. Democracy has never been cheap. We can engage them for those 2 years, but we are saying for these elections, let someone else, for the sake of our country, come in and
But IEBC says that political parties and all these stakeholders, the UN, including the Commonwealth, will be privy to every stage of the process, including the printing, where you're raising concern that somebody could be holding
You remember what they said last time? They took some people to go and see the printing in Dubai. So what guarantees are there that after I've seen the printing and the packaging, you will not print others after I've gone?
What guarantee is there with any other firm that that wouldn't happen?
Because they have not been besmirched.
No, I think the best response would be whoever you bring up, whether it's UNDP paying, but why would they be involved in our things, by the way?
Who?
Thank you.
The UNDP.
Okay.
They should stay away. And I think the IEBC is getting complacent in very many ways. If they were told to go and prepare for an election on November or within 60 days, I think that's what they should be worried about. The issue of somebody trying to jump out, they should not go out of their way or go to extreme measures to plead for somebody to participate. What we need specifically, we don't want an IBC to be complacent. We don't want an IBC to go pampering and pleading as though they are a bunch of criminals. They did an election, which I participated. He participated, but he's actually a beneficiary of the MCAs who won there. There were 6 ballots. Now, if the ballot, you say you have no confidence in the ballot that elected the president, are they in solidarity willing to resign en masse, all the MPs, governors, MCs, senators, women reps, just to prove that this was a wrong ballot paper?
Are you?
Can I answer him? My friend.
Yes.
This system of rigging was not for en masse. It was for chosen candidates belonging to Jubilee, who were given this system of transmission of results so that the results would be that 54-44. You get what I'm saying? Number one. Number two.
The algorithm didn't apply across the board.
It did not. It was, I look at you, Anne, I don't like your face. You survive on your own.
What?
Him, I like his face. I want him in Parliament.
Are you referring to me right now?
I'm just using it as an example.
Okay, very good. Because we were going to have a problem, but now we don't.
So what I'm saying, to ask people to resign en masse is to approach this issue in a very naive way.
Solidarity.
What we are saying is, for those who are beneficiaries of this illegality, they should be bold to step aside, whether they are on our side or their side. And it's very unlikely that they are on our side. Who will empower his opponents?
But how come NASA never singled out the specific areas that this algorithm was applied in X, Y, Z areas? And for this, that, and the other races?
You want the answer?
Not even, by the way, in court specifically.
Thank you. You know, you make your allegations. The court make a finding. We made our allegations in the presidential petition of 2017, and the court made a finding. There are several petitions that have been filed by governors, by senators, by MPs, by MCAs. When they make such allegations and they rely on the Supreme Court decision, then a finding would be made to the contrary or to support the same. Remember, there will be also opportunists who are probably just defeated, who would want to gain from the system that helped my brother's side.
Oh dear.
I can deny that one categorically. He is guessing because he never proved that algorithm thing. It was just an allegation, and he knows it.
Okay, but let's return to what IEBC has said. And earlier, Mauka took exception to the fact that the UN, UNDP specifically, would have any role to play in the election. Listen to what IEBC has also said, is that they will be continuing with the French firm that supplied the KIMS kit. They will be going with Safaricom because of their network coverage, which is superior to other firms. And the Commission will, quote, embed technical experts from the UN and the Commonwealth. So again, here is the UN and the international community being added into this process in a bid, as IEBC would have it, to increase transparency, build credibility of the process. Is this not a positive step forward, in NASA's opinion?
It is a positive, but not sufficient. We made our demands and said, this is what we want, this is what is irreducible, that you cannot go below it. And the United Nations is populated by human beings. These human beings have got biases. So it is not enough to say the United Nations will help procure, the United Nations will come and look at these things. We should be, for instance, be involved and be told this is how these people have been brought in and this is how they will. So you involve the participants at all stages. I don't wake up and tell you I have a team of UN people who are very neutral to oversee this process. There are so many.
But they are involving you, including calling you for meetings that NASA has now categorically said they will no longer attend. Because
one, it is late. Two, you see the letter? It has avoided several other issues that we brought in. Like one of the things that we said, look, this, the returning officers, we want them to be recruited by IEBC. We have no issues, but let them be posted in through a ballot system, so that you are not specifically said you will go to Igembe North, you will go to Igembe South, because probably you have been prepared to go and perform some task there. That has not been answered. We are saying these ballot papers, even whether you are going to procure them through UNDP, UN, whatever, there are things we have made that are specific there. They have to be serialized, number one. They have to have the names of our candidates pre-printed, plus the polling stations, so that you cannot have some in your village and fill them and bring them in.
Things which I believe they have also partly said, other than the part where they talk about the Excel forms.
Thank you.
But having said that, though, how do you make such demands if you're not willing to sit at a table and negotiate on what you're saying? Mauka?
The demands are good. Because what happens is that when you make endless demands, it means, even if we are to ask one honorable speaker, Onyango Olo, to be the printer, to be the distributor, to be the recruiting agent, he will still coordinate somebody else to come and boycott the election in the 60 days or on the 26th. It is not about these demands. It's about the problem that arose out of that ruling. And as I told you earlier, they were not expecting that ruling. Now, when it came, it's a surprise. You don't know what to do with it. And up to the moment, even if you hear them making demands, these demands, nobody can meet them. Hata wao ukipatiwa saa hii, you tell him to meet these demands, he knows he cannot meet them. So what is it? What is it? Can we decode?
Yes.
You know that thing of mene tekel. I think we need somebody to...
The writing on the wall?
Yes.
We need somebody to decode what is it actually they mean, or whether they mean what they say, or they say what they mean.
But let me just finish on this issue of the UN. So both sides, you both agree that the UN should have nothing to do with the running
Kenya
of
is
this
not a failed
election.
state. Kenya is not a failed state. The IBC should get out of office if they are unable to conduct something credible. Because the NASA coalition was very confident about an institution called the judiciary, which is a creature of the Constitution. And they went to the Supreme Court, got a ruling. They should have the same confidence with an institution called the IEBC, which they actually configured and created and supported and voted for and supported everybody.
So what do you do then, Onyango, with an IEBC then that has already put down as part of their procedure the involvement of the UN and the Commonwealth in critical stages of this election?
You know, I've not given my answer. Honorable Member Mauka has given his answer. We are saying we have no problem with the UN. In fact, one of our demands that we don't mind the UN overseeing this.
They should go to Afghanistan.
But that is his position.
NASA or the UN? Who are you referring to?
But our position is simple. Even whether you want to involve the World Bank or the UN or whoever, let both parties be involved in these stages to ensure credibility. Remember, the first people to give this election a clean bill of health was the European Union, the Carter Foundation from America, international organizations of repute, only to be shocked the genuinity, or what do you call it, of the Kenyan ICT experts who could just mess the whole system to make them believe. So we are saying involve us, because we have been part of this thing and we have seen how our brothers can really connive to steal an election, so that we point these things to you, so that we do these things together. They have not done that.
But how can you be involved if you're not going to sit at the table?
But if you believe an election goes
please allow Onyango just to respond to that. Because you've insisted on your involvement and the involvement of stakeholders, yet when IBC says let us have a meeting, you're not going to show up.
Do you remember we showed up the first time and Jubilee failed to turn up, or turned up very late?
I think they turned up 30 minutes later.
30 minutes late. Sorry. These are men who are supposedly, and women who are running government and knows the value of time.
But isn't what at stake bigger? Isn't what at stake bigger than the fact that somebody was late for 30 minutes?
And I'm answering you.
Go ahead, go ahead.
I have arrived, you told me to appear by 10. I've appeared at 10. 30 minutes, the other opponent side is not coming. What extraordinary powers do you think I have that I'll know he's on the way? And I also have other engagements. I've also to campaign, because tomorrow you may wake up and say you have now complied. Number one. Number two, I want you to accept one thing that is clear, that even up to now we have not said we cannot talk with them. These people go out, they write a letter to us that address a quarter of the issues we have written to them, and that are admitted haphazardly and halfway. And then they want you to sit on the basis of that. Waste our time as the others are campaigning. We are telling them we want to go for this election like yesterday, but we are not going to go for it under the same system that was used to rig us out.
No, I think if you have had him repeat almost 3-4 times during our debate, somebody has stolen an election. If you really want to confirm whether an election has been stolen, you don't go and just scream something has been picked from my pocket, you cannot explain what it is because you have seen somebody's hand near your pocket and you assume somebody has stolen. Are you interested in actually a recount to know how many votes or how many ballots were stolen? Or it's just the fact that somebody has declared it stolen, you want to hang on that one, somebody has stolen an election?
Yeah. Food for thought. Please, I do want a substantial answer to my question, which is this. Yes, Jubilee showed up late to that meeting, the first meeting. I think the deputy president said they are, they're also running government. They couldn't be there on time, but nonetheless they showed up. Be that as it may, whether you feel that you were snubbed in some way or IBC at that point presented a letter which was, at the wrong time, etc. Out of the goodwill that one would suppose that the NASA coalition has, isn't what is at stake much greater than the fact that somebody perhaps snubbed you the first time? And I ask this because the position that NASA is looking for, leadership of the country, surely you will face much more, pricks in your eye than being snubbed for 30 minutes. Yes. So to use that as the basis of saying we will not return to talks, or to use the fact that IEBC presented to you a letter that they had not given you in advance, or to use the fact that you believe even in this response they have not dealt with all the 9, I believe, points that are in your irreducible demands, isn't that belittling the weight of the very same concerns that you're raising and really what is at stake, which is a nation?
Our country is far greater than you and me. This country is our country. But as my leader once put it, nobody invited the other in this country. And we must never assume that you have higher stakes than me in this country. We are all here by right. So someone should not think in his senses, wherever he is, that if this country blows up, and pray God, we hope that something like that does not happen. And those who much is given, much is expected. Those who control the government, the reins of power, they should act with maximum restraint. They should even explain why we find ourselves in a situation like this. It is even unfortunate that my friend comes and say that we go for a recount, that it is not enough to scream that my money has been stolen. When my money is stolen, I go to court, and the court has said it is truly stolen, and Mauka Maore has my money.
How much?
It is not enough for Mauka Maore to say, how much did you steal? Me, I have money here, and there are 3,000 that they have be mine. Ameongeza yake na yangu ndani hapo. So how will I get mine from there? So it's not enough to say we go recount the ballot papers, which you have been
But right now we're talking about what it would take to bring you to the table. And I know you have rightly said that to him, much has been given, much is expected, and in reference to the administration, but much has been given to NASA as well. Even if you were to go with the figures of 6 million, that is much, and much is equally expected of your side. Can you agree to that?
And that is why we went there. When they did not respond, we took time and say, now let us write to them what we want. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we told them, we have asked for so many things, but you can ignore them. But the following are the minimum. What do you want us to do? To also start threatening Kenyans the way they are threatening us in rallies?
Is it too much to ask to show up at a meeting?
We are still willing to show up, but to show up with the very person who stole my cock and slaughtered for his in-laws when my in-laws went hungry?
Now, the question is, a quick one. There was this issue about when you don't state what you want, you leave speculation.
We stated.
Now, no, if those things are not done, the elections are supposed to be done on 26th of October. What happens? Because there is an issue of somebody willing to look for a caretaker government or cause a crisis, or a purport that you want a coalition. And it has come out clearly there is none of those, because already Parliament is in place. It is not even a half. So there is no coalition which can come up.
Right.
Who said we want a coalition or half a government?
No, but you want something, tell us.
We want the whole government. We want something, that is true. But we want the entire government, my brother.
Right. Unfortunately, that's our time. I thank you both very much for coming on the program. And for your views. Yes, it's overtime.
We all love this country.
I thank you for coming. We are taking a short break, and I'm back with the sport after this.